Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Sam Palazzolo. Welcome to the CEO Catalyst Discovery Briefing, where today I'm going to be reviewing with you several things that I know are going to make a difference in your leadership capabilities. We're going to provide you with some real solutions as well as real strategies to help you better lead yourself, lead your team, and scale your business in a short 15-20 minute time period. I'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A as always. But here is where I want to start out today. And it's by asking the question, why? It's what I call my windshield moment. Why? Why is this happening to me? It's late and I've got an hour commute to drive back home. I'm in my early 20s and I'm working in strategic planning. It's been another long day. Another pointless meeting, another moment where I swallow my frustration because I know deep down that saying what I really think, it's not going to change a thing. So as I sit in my car in preparation of going home, I grip the steering wheel tighter than I should. My knuckles are white. I can still see them. And I can still feel myself boiling up. Frustration, exhaustion, resentment, and then it just all spills over. And before I realize it, I'm yelling at my windshield. Not at a person or at traffic. I haven't even moved yet. And I'm screaming. I'm in a screaming match with the windshield. I've gone from 0 to 60, moved nowhere. I've been able to go from calm to lunatic in just a few seconds. Why is this happening to me? Why am I stuck? Why do I feel like I'm suffocating? I've heard people say, you're never given more than you can handle. But right here, right now, it felt like way too much. And that's when the how hits me. I'm frustrated. Not just because of my boss, not just because of the company, but because I feel powerless. Because I've let myself believe that this is just how it is and how it has to be. But here's the truth. I didn't have a clarity problem back then. I had an altitude at clarity problem. I'd been making decisions from the ground level. I was stuck in the daily ground. Buried in the stress, I was reacting instead of leading. I thought, I already know how this ends. I'll pull into my driveway once I finish that hour commute. I'll sit there in silence for a minute or two after I turn my engine off. I'll collect my thoughts. I'll walk inside, pretend everything's fine, and I'll tell myself, tomorrow will be different. But it wouldn't. And I knew it wasn't going to be. Because the problem, it wasn't my boss. It wasn't the company. And it wasn't the endless meetings, the bureaucracy, or the feeling that I was drowning in a place that should have been helping me grow as a leader. The problem was I was stuck in the wrong altitude and I had no clarity. I've been making decisions from that ground level where everything looks impossible, where frustration rules, and where I couldn't see my way out. Sound familiar? But there was one other how for me. I recognized that clarity doesn't come from fighting with the windshield. Clarity comes from getting up high enough where I could see the whole picture. I recognized right then and there that when you gain altitude, the things that felt like mountains suddenly shrink. New paths, new opportunities, options you didn't even realize were there. And so that night, before I'd even left the parking lot, sitting in my car, breathing hard, eyes burning, I made a decision. I was done screaming at the windshield. I was going to change my altitude. And I knew the exact person who was going to help me. He was an executive recruiter who had acted as my coach in the past And so I outreached to him and I started working with him again. And I finally saw the decisions I should have been making all along. So I'll ask you, where are you making your decisions from? Are you at an altitude where you can see clearly? Or are you, like I was, locked into a screaming match with your windshield every day? I'm going to share with you a couple of things that are going to benefit you as a result of participating in this discovery brief. But before we do, a quick infomercial. Let me quickly tell you a little bit about the CEO Catalyst program that I'm launching on February 20th. It's limited to just 20 leaders. It's a 6-week program, and it's designed to help you lead yourself, lead your team, and scale your business. How do we do that? We're going to start out by assessing you as a leader across 3 key areas. Again, you as a leader, you and your ethical makeup, and you under pressure. We'll also explore some best leadership practices from top educational institutions and organizations. So think Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan, Stanford Business, Microsoft, Google, Apple. Okay. We're going to focus on essential organization development skills such as goal setting, time management, and even communication skills, especially listening. So if you're serious about scaling your leadership, creating stronger teams, and growing your business, I've designed this program to give you the tools and the frameworks to do just that. But for now, let's explore some of these CEO Catalyst core content in today's briefing. It'll give you some actionable insights that you can apply immediately as soon as we get out of this session. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about leading yourself, recognizing your need for recognition, because recognition, it is a key aspect. Recognition reflects a desire for attention, approval, and praise. It speaks to how much you seek feedback, how you value acknowledgement for your contributions, and whether you prefer to work independently or to receive public recognition. I've had it described this much. On a low end of recognition, you tend to be indifferent to praise and feedback. You prefer to work independently and may not seek recognition for your efforts. High scorers on a recognition scale, they appreciate feedback and actively seek acknowledgement. They like being noticed and they enjoy receiving praise for their work. So let's do an exercise. Take a moment to rank yourself on a scale from 0 to 10. A score is 0, that means you're indifferent to recognition. A 10, that would mean you thrive on recognition and feedback. So rank yourself 0 to 10 and think about how this desire for recognition affects the way that you approach your leadership. If you're someone who craves recognition, do you feel that drives you toward greater success? Or can it sometimes lead to frustration when you don't get that acknowledgement? If you don't seek recognition, do you feel your motivation comes from internal satisfaction and accomplishment? Got your score? Yeah, because after, I'd like you to reflect for a second with me. I'd like you to consider how you can adjust your approach to your leadership. Can you embrace more feedback from your team to enhance performance? Or should you work on recognizing the internal satisfaction of simply achieving goals without the need for external praise? Leading yourself, recognition. Let's slide into another. And it's leading your team. Let's talk a little bit about power, because power is a desire for success, accomplishment, status, and control. This scale is about the influence you wish to have in your role and how much you want to drive change or impact in your environment. It also speaks to the level of assertiveness and leadership you bring to your team. Leaders who score low on power, they tend to not care much about it being successful or making a difference. They may be more passive in their approach to leadership and less concerned with gaining status or power. Those that score high, they're highly driven to succeed and make an impact. They aim for power, status, and accomplishment, often wanting to lead change and take charge. Again, rank yourself from 0 to 10. From 0 to 10. 0, again, you have little interest in taking charge or being recognized for your accomplishments, while 10 means you are driven by power and status. Got your number? Okay. Let's think about the type of leader you are. If you're a high scorer, do you find that your desire for power and influence benefits your team by motivating them towards higher performance? Or do you sometimes need to adjust your approach to avoid coming across as overbearing? If you're a low scorer, do you feel that not pursuing power means you miss opportunities for driving change or leading your team more effectively? Consider this. How can you adapt your leadership style to meet your team's need for guidance and motivation while still achieving your team goals, your personal goals, and your organizational goals? Leading your team, power. Now let's take a minute. Let's talk a little bit about scaling your business. Here's a term that I bet you're not throwing around every day: hedonism. But hedonism, for our purposes here today, it concerns an orientation towards fun, pleasure, and enjoyment. It's about finding pleasure in your work and in life. Now, this scale, hedonism, it's relevant when assessing whether you prefer a more enjoyable, flexible work style versus a rigid, high-pressure one. The balance of work and play is central here. Leaders who scored low on hedonism, they tend to be serious and businesslike, always focused on work. They may prioritize productivity over enjoyment and tend not to seek pleasure at their tasks. Leaders who score high on hedonism, they actively seek enjoyment and pleasure in their work. They are more likely to pursue work environments where they can have fun and enjoy the process. So I'll ask you again, let's rate yourself on hedonism from 0 to 10. 0 would mean you're always serious and focused on work. A 10 would mean you're constantly seeking fun and pleasure in your daily tasks. Got your score? Okay. Now reflect on how this balance affects your work and your business scaling efforts. If you're a high scorer, do you bring a lighthearted, energizing influence to your team? Or might you struggle with staying focused on the tasks that drive growth? If you're a low scorer, do you feel like the drive for constant productivity stifles your creativity, as well as those around you, and your ability or their ability to enjoy work? Think about how you can adjust your approach here to hedonism. Can you introduce more enjoyment and flexibility to your team to boost engagement? Or do you need to rein in the fun to maintain focus on scaling the business effectively? All right, we covered a lot of ground with these three. Let me summarize them. We started out by talking about leading yourself with recognition. How much do you need acknowledgement and feedback? And how does that drive your actions? We talked about leading your team and power. How do you balance your desire for influence with effective leadership? And bringing it home to scale your business, we talked a little bit about hedonism. Are you balancing work and enjoyment in a way that both promotes both success and satisfaction? Which brings me to Tim and his why. Tim here. He stared at his computer screen. His jaw was tight. His fingers were hovering over the keyboard one day. It had been another long day, another firefight, another moment where Tim felt like he was reacting instead of leading. Sound familiar? This should sound familiar also. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And Tim knew it. Tim had built something real, a company with potential, a team that looked to him for direction. On paper, he was the leader, but in reality, he was exhausted. Every day felt like survival. Every decision, it felt rushed. And every challenge felt like it was stacking higher and higher until it became too much. And then just like that, it happened. Tim snapped. He slammed his keyboard on the desk. He yelled into an empty office. He threw his hands in the air and he muttered the only word that made sense in the moment. Why is this happening to me? Why do I feel like I'm drowning in my own business? And why can't I get out of this cycle of stress, of frustration, and a burnout? For a long time, Tim thought the answer was to work harder, push through, grind it out, wait for things to get better. But somehow they just never did. And that's when he realized Tim didn't have a strategy problem. Tim's got an altitude with clarity problem. Sound familiar? Yeah. He had been leading from the ground level, stuck in the weeds, unable to see beyond the next crisis. So he made a choice. Instead of trying to solve it alone, he reached out to me. And that's when Tim and I started working together. That was 5 years ago. And through my executive coaching programs, we pulled Tim out of the weeds and we gave him a framework for clarity. My 5 pillars methodology with 90 pylons supporting it underneath. Quick readiness assessment. It allowed us to redefine his role as a leader, not just working in the business, but scaling it. We built a team that didn't just take direction, but they owned their roles. And when he finally gained altitude, everything changed for Tim. Instead of drowning in the details, he set a clear vision. Instead of micromanaging, he empowered his team. Instead of surviving, he started scaling. Tim didn't just reclaim his leadership, he reclaimed his business, and I would argue himself. So I'll ask you, are you leading from the ground? Are you reacting to the chaos? Or are you ready to rise above and lead with clarity? If you're ready to rise above and lead with clarity and refine skills to scale your leadership even further, I invite you to apply for my CEO Catalyst program launching February 20th. Again, we're limiting participation to 15 leaders, and I'd love for you to join us. Here's a little bit about the program that consists of leading yourself, leading your team, and scaling your business to new heights. If I added up everything that was involved in this, on a weekly basis for 6 weeks, we're going to meet for 90 minutes as a cohort group. And I'm going to take you through some of our leadership program. We're going to talk a little bit about time management and some of those organizational behavior skills that we mentioned, including communication. I'm going to share with you 3 of my books, The Influential Leader, Communicating with Influence, and Leading at the Tip of the Spear. I'm going to share with you my best program to date. It's 30 days to become the best leader. Yeah. We're also going to have on a weekly basis, not only the 90-minute cohort group meeting, we're also going to have a 60-minute mastermind session. Following that mastermind session, we're also going to have one-on-one individual coaching each week. This whole cohort and this whole CEO Catalyst is loaded with playbooks and strategies, and I'm going to give you those recipes. And we're also going to have not only meeting masterminds weekly, but an asynchronous discussion thread that'll stay open not only for the 6 weeks, but for a full 12 months. You'll be able to lead yourself better, you'll be able to lead your team, and you'll be able to scale your business. If I added up everything that's included in this program, it costs almost $50,000. But that's not what I'm charging. I'm charging $4,500 for this 6-week program. And if you take advantage of an early bird offering, I'll give you 50% off. It won't be $4,500, it'll be $2,250. At time of checkout, just enter in Discovery. Okay? You can find out more about the CEO Catalyst in the link that's within this post or on this YouTube video. Now, I ask you if you are ready to rise above and refine your skills. Because if you are, let's go. What are you waiting for? I want to thank you for joining me again. My name is Sam Palazzolo. This has been one of our CEO Catalyst Discovery Briefings, and it's been my pleasure to share with you a few of our strategies that we look at when we assess leaders to lead themselves, to lead their teams, and to scale their businesses. I look forward to seeing and working with you in the CE Catalyst program. Again, Sam Palazzolo, Real Strategies, Real Results.